Funton Chuck's is a great place to work because it is one of the most known restaurants in the state. Well, it was a great place to work. It is an entertainment restaurant unlike any ordinary, where it had a stage that will give shows using string puppets or hand puppet and dummies, and some bands would even perform their songs up there too. Some rare times there would even be a magician casting his tricks to the kids and casting his charms to some young ladies if you liked them enough. I got a job there 2 years ago as a porter just after I graduated from school. I needed money to save up for a car and move into my own place. My parents also expected me to be more independent and help pay for stuff around the house, like with the groceries. They gave me the basic uniform, the Chuck's apron with the dummy logo, black trousers, and a Chuck's hat. A few of the staff that worked with the puppets would often get sick a lot, so I was asked by my manager if it was alright to take over the puppet shows if no one was there, and he even threw in some extra cash. I like to earn extra, and with a little practice, they shouldn't be too hard to control, so long as I use the string puppets, because it takes years to learn how to talk without moving your lips, and he said that he only wanted me to use the string puppets, otherwise he would be surprised if I already knew how to make a puppet's mouth move while I talk through it. I was taught basic skills by one of the people I'll possibly fill in for, and it was quite easy to move those strings. I did my first show only 4 days after. I went for half an hour and did pretty well at it, considering I was a little nervous, but not for the fact that it was easy anyway and didn't take me much learning. After I was done, when the kids started leaving, I packed away the box I was hiding behind and the Chuck puppet back behind the stage. I drew open the curtains and walked into a dark room with Chuck mascots and dummies everywhere. Even an animatronic that was a part of the Chuck team. After that, I went to my boss and told him I was finished, and he remarked me well done and let me off early for lunch. I had my lunch by the stage and just listened to some music on my phone, but feeling like I was being watched. I turned my head to the right and saw some of my co-workers, who too were on break, looking at me in an odd way, turning their heads when I looked. They were eyeballing me, trying to make sure I didn't notice them. I swear, I thought the Chuck mascot on the other side of the room down the front was as well peeking at me through the giant stuffed mouth. He was almost facing my way and very still, basically looking past me. A girl around my age who was part of that group watching me came over to me by the table and said, "It isn't right. It just isn't right. They shouldn't have picked you. It isn't fair for you. You did nothing wrong. You don't even know about it. You don't even know anything about this place." Okay, what the hell was that? I thought to myself. She must be crazy. They all must be crazy. I would have told my boss about all the weird stuff that has been going on from most of my colleagues, but I didn't want to get the bad from them on me, so I just forgot about it. Just as long as they don't bully me. I finished my day and received my extra pay before leaving. Next morning, straight as I got there, I was handed my first job, which was going behind the stage and wiping down the giant Chuck animatronic. I wasn't really keen about that, but I can't argue with my boss. I'm lucky enough to find my first job in a high-class restaurant anyway, and earn a fair bit of pay. I walked to the back, up the stage, and drew the red curtains and walked inside. My boss told me about a light, so this time I could see what I was doing. I searched for a little while to find a hanging light, and finally grabbed onto something and pulled down a switch. The room lit up, but only just enough to see what was what. The room was still dark and dull. I walked past all the junk, accidentally knocking down a few mops and brooms, and a couple of puppets. I walked behind the large wardrobe that had the female animatronic behind it. I closed the broken door because there was one of those Chuck puppets sitting inside, watching me, and it sure did make me feel a little uneasy. I started with cleaning the face, as that would be the easiest, and then when I finished, I went over to fix the leg and arms of a broken dummy he also told me about. I walked over to the dummy, but on the corner of my eye, I could have sworn I saw the arm of one of the Chuck dummies just slightly move. I immediately turned my head and saw the dummy facing me. Unlike all the other machines and puppets that were facing the curtains with the back to me, this one was sitting in the opposite direction, facing the back, facing me. I thought everything that was sitting up was looking directly to the front of the stage, only except for the ones scattered across the ground. I couldn't remember seeing anything pointing to where I was before I walked over to there. I walked over to the table and grabbed the dummy, inspecting it closely. I fiddled with its arms to see if they too needed repair, and searched for anything that quite possibly caused its arm to shift a little, like an impaired joint, but there was nothing wrong with it. It was all in good repair, better than most of the others were. I sat it back down on the table, confused and a little freaked out, trying to think of the most rational explanation to what I thought I saw. I couldn't think of anything other than I just imagined the whole thing, and that it must have been facing the back before I walked over to it, and must have missed it. Otherwise, that would be impossible. The arm thing was weird enough, but for a whole body to turn, especially still sitting in a neat position, nothing freakishly unusual could cause that. I don't want to think I'm going completely insane. I faced the dummy to the front and went back over to fix the broken dummy before calling it finished to my boss. I just wanted to do my job as quickly and properly as I could. A lot of things here have been really weird, but I'm only new here, and it's the first job I ever had. When I was at home that evening after my day ended while watching TV, I was just thinking about what I thought I saw. It almost seemed too real. I was also thinking about those people I work with, and that strange girl who came over to me a few days ago and told me all that weird stuff. I called one of my friends who I went to school with and told her about my past and present experience with my new Funtime Chucks job. I told her how, at first, it just seemed normal, but started going weird with my staff members and that girl. And I told her about how I thought I saw a dummy in the backstage move. Her first words were how lucky I was to get a job there and wish she could, and then giggled about that girl, and me thinking that there is a living dummy at my work. Ooh, perhaps that dummy is possessed by that teenage girl. I think she has a crush on you. Creepy, she says. So funny, Kate, I said to her. She doesn't even really turn up here anymore. Matter of speaking, she hasn't been there since that day they were all looking at me. She disappeared just after she approached me and saying that bizarre stuff. Would not be surprised if she got the sack. Or maybe she's gone because she actually is haunting that dummy. That dummy is probably her. Well, so long as she is just a harmless wacko and isn't always there around me. I need to go now. Bye, Kate. Talk to you soon. Bye. The next day was different because it all went well. Nothing odd happened, and I finished to go home like it was any other job. I must have just been getting a little carried away. I was tired because some nights I'd have strange dreams about the fun-time trucks I worked at then. I even had dreams where one of the dummies went missing, the one that had been looking at me, and it would turn up in random places. It was the next week when I filled in for a couple of sick employees to entertain the children with the puppets. This time, since there was 2 of them sick, I was paid double extra, but I still dreaded about going back into that stage after the previous time. I did think I was being silly, acting like a terrified little boy that is scared of these human-like things in there. That's probably why I hallucinated. I went inside and grabbed the puppet, did my 2 long shows, cleaned up and put everything back and finished without any strange interruptions. The boss went to pay me before I left, which I was really excited for, but caught me for a word. He was going on about the night shift, that not many people do the night shift, which was on a Friday, because it was when a lot of people go after they finish work for the week. He asked if I could do the night shift on Friday from 5 to 10 and swap it over instead of working in a day, only if I wanted to and had nothing planned that night. He said this time it is really good pay. I happily but awkwardly accepted it after he said that. I'll be pretty tired that night and prefer to work during the day, especially on a Friday, but as I would exceed a very high pay rise, I'll be just about happy to do anything. Weird stuff started happening again that week, when I thought it was over, with people somehow knowing I was working at night, trying to talk me out of it, saying stuff like, "You don't know what you're getting yourself into. He's only using you to help them." Like last time, they all didn't make a spot of sense. Some of the other people got them away from me, apologizing not to be freaked out by them, explaining that they are just confused and had stuff going in their life and they are here working to be helped back into a healthy spirit. Okay, I said. It's fine, really. The Friday evening came, and I drove to the Funtime Trucks 10 minutes early to be on the safer side. That was already loaded with people. I started thinking how weird it was that my boss got me, a fresh beginner who's only starting to learn basic steps, to take over the night shift, but suits me anyway. I'm just happy to earn more pay. I already nearly had enough to buy me a cheap get-around car, and my parents are pleased with my opportunities. I imagine the people mocking me must really be jealous that I'm doing all the hard pay work, filling in for people, when they have been here much longer than I have. I put my cigarette out and walked in when all the rest came, and like he said, not many people turned up. Aside from myself, it was just a couple of small bands, people who did a stand-up comedy, and other young staff that was also new to the job that was as well chosen to fill in. I can see why he needed more people to work the night since a lot of people were home and there were so many customers that needed service. I first started sweeping food off the floor and mopping the bathroom and doing my usual job serving drinks. It was quite a loud active night and seemed much longer than it was. It was about half an hour after closing time that we all finished cleaning all the mess, only except for those dummies and other things behind the stage. No one bothered putting them away, and I wasn't going to. I was just going to do what I had to and finally leave. They were left a mess. We were able to go, but I had to first just do my last job and find soap for the dishwasher. Most of the people were already gone. It was just me and two young guys who also took over for others, but shortly they left before I even packed my bag to leave. I was left alone in this creepy dark building. I was still packing my bag, but I thought I could hear the voice of someone behind the stage. I called out, but there wasn't any response. I assumed that a customer stuck behind there, so I called out explaining that I was leaving. I was going to lock up, so they had to leave, otherwise they'll be locked in for the weekend. It was still silent. I couldn't hear anything other than my breathing and the crickets outside. I slowly walked towards the stage and up the steps, walking through the curtains, to find that all the human-like figures have all turned to face me. I jumped back, nearly falling over. It was quite an unexpected fight. I slowly crept back in curiously and turned on that dull light. All the faces of the human-likes had wide grins, but not in a child-friendly way. They all looked wickedly and hateful. I was going to get the hell out of there, but saw that the same dummy sitting on a table was the only thing in that room that wasn't smiling. Instead, I had more of a straight, unpleasant, angry look. A look that would resemble intense hate. He wasn't facing me like the others this time. His head was slightly turned, just looking over the right of me. I stepped back a little and something fell onto my foot. It was what I think was the same broken puppet I fixed last week, now broken again. I didn't bother putting him back on the seat. I just left him on the ground. Out of nowhere, the female animatronic just automatically switched on by itself, moving its head and arms to the side, singing a muffled gibberish tune. I thought they were switched off. A squeaking sound also came out of its mouth when it moved. I didn't break it in any way. I didn't even touch it. I was nowhere near that thing. And that talking I heard, it came from in here, but there is nothing. No one is inside this stage. I started to think that it was a prank and those things in there were all turned deliberately to face me, and someone was making noise to bring me in there. But now, I just don't know. What had just happened almost made me feel like wanting to think about looking for another job and leaving this one, even in such a great business. What in the world is going on? My duties here are fine, but all the weird things that had just been happening, it doesn't make any sense. Even if it was some big game I was in the center of, no one could be that clever and go through such extremes. It would be nearly impossible. If this wasn't a whole game thing, then I don't know what it was. But someone still would had to have moved those things within the last few minutes without me knowing. I wasn't really going to leave just because of some whacked up occurrences, and not many new school leavers would be able to do work straight away as great as mine. There is a cause for everything. Maybe someone decided to pack them away, but I'm not sure how they could have done it so fast and quickly. What else could I think of? The next week came, and like any other, it was just the same. People looking at me oddly, a few strange comments from people, how I was working last Friday in a peculiar way. I went to my boss this time. I just couldn't take all this unnecessary strange attention from these people. I told him how they have been staring at me most of the time, and that some would even ask me odd stuff. He thanked me for telling him this, and said that he would have a word with these people, and keep an extra eye out to everyone more, to make sure things are alright. Oh great, I thought. Now because of them, we are all going to be watched more to see how we are going. That doesn't feel awkward at all. I thanked my boss and left the room. It wasn't until after lunch that I remembered I needed to collect a new badge from the office. My other one got torn by something sharp on a chair that other night when I fell back after getting a fright. I didn't tell them how it really happened, just said it happened at home when I pulled it off a shelf and got jammed. I walked in and received my new badge from the lady at the office, and walked out to my locker and put it away in my bag straight after so I wouldn't lose it. I went back to clear a few drinking glasses from the tables just outside the office, but just as I was clearing the tables, I heard a giggle coming from inside there. There was that same dummy looking at me through the window, but this time it was standing up on the table by the window. I walked towards the room, again thinking that it must have had things binded on its legs and torso, propping it up, but it was just all the dummy. There wasn't anything to keep it standing. How could this be if it's jointed? It was now standing on its own. It's like this thing was able to control its body like it was an actual living dummy. It's weird because it's supposed to be behind the stage. I looked in the back room and called out for Deborah, the lady working at the office. I was wondering what she thought was so funny. I knocked and walked inside after another 5 tries, but saw no Deborah. I was both confused about where Deborah has gotten and mad. I stormed up to my boss's office again and reported that I have been bullied by some of the people, making noises to get my attention and facing dummies and things to scare me. He told me that he would check the camera to see who was doing it. My boss reversed the time of a small old camera that was by his desk up to the time I left the office after receiving my new badge to when I walked over to it after hearing a giggle sound coming from in there. But as we re-watched a few more times to make sure we both weren't missing out on anything, we saw that no one had been in that office after I left. Only the janitor walking past the camera mopping, a teenage boy called Fred about my age that was also putting away dishes before I got there, and the office lady, Deborah, who just left her office. This was all too weird. I told him that I definitely heard someone's giggle coming from inside the office, and that I definitely did not remember seeing that dummy, which was somehow magically standing up on its own in there when I went to collect my badge. The camera only showed half the office window, which wasn't the side that dummy was at. I wanted to see who put it there, and there wasn't any camera in that office. My boss told me that the laughter was probably coming from another direction, making me think it came from inside that office room, or I just imagined it, and that the dummy had to have been there, that I missed. There wasn't anything else that could be said to explain that. I asked him where Deborah went, out of curiosity, and he said that she left early for family business. I again thanked him and left feeling like I was losing my mind. It all seems too real to have been my imagination, and not just today. All the crazy stuff that had been going on since it started, but I don't know what else to think. I assumed he was right all along. Maybe I just needed some more rest. I work long hours and haven't been getting enough proper sleep. I was going to set a sleeping routine for myself. My boss walked inside the office and put the dummy that almost seems to be following me back behind the stage. That evening when I got home, I sewed on my badge using my mum's old hand-down sewing machine she passed on to me, and went to bed straight on 10. I got up at 7 and urged myself to go to bed the same time on a working night. I hoped it would help. I started work later than usual because the boss said that something was up with Deborah and he needed to see her. There have been rumors around that she is now living in a mental facility after having problems about yesterday, and she no longer works here anymore. I have never seen any signs of an unusual way about her. I know I don't see her often, but she normally is quite fine and happy. Heck, yesterday when she was handing me the badge, she actually seemed more normal than anyone in this place. I would have bet she would have been more sane than half the weirdos working here, and if anyone needs help, it should be them. And I thought I was the one who was wrong for my own help. As curious as I was, I didn't ask any more to the boss. I just did what I had to do, or had been trying to do all this time ever since I joined this nut ward. That evening was unusual. Well, quite frankly, ever since I started working here, the whole time has been unusual, so it really is just normal. But I was asked to stay back an hour longer because there was another wave of people here last Friday night and was quite a mess. I don't know why, but I was the only one who stayed behind this time while everyone left. Even my boss left, which annoyed me a bit. Well, at least I'll be getting more pay again, and my credit from all these other pays are going up pretty high. It will be no time before I'm able to buy my first car, and then save up for my own house. I should feel lucky that I'm always picked, for whatever reason. My boss left the spare keys with me, asking me to lock up when I was done, and handing me a list of chores. I wasn't sure if this was legal. I had no supervision. I looked at the list, and as always, I looked for the easiest job. I'd first start with mopping the cola stains off the floorboard. I grabbed the mop left in this deserted building, quiet, dark with only the few lights my boss left on for me, That was the ones at the front and the ones in the middle where the tables are. I started mopping, just wanting to get this done, and then went back to clear a few tables. Next I was to throw away some rubbish and put the dishes back in the dishwasher. I worked as quickly as possible so it'd be done sooner. I was nearly finished with my shift and was relieved that I'd be able to go home soon and leave this creepy place. But then I heard it. There was that same giggle I heard a couple weeks back behind the stage, and the same giggle I heard coming from that office. No, this time I wasn't imagining it. It is all real. I called for the police, and as soon as the operator answered, I dropped the phone to see on the corner of my eye to the left of me, there was that same chalk dummy, sitting 10 feet away, sitting in one of the chairs at a table. Back turned to me, but head turned around facing me. I moved my body to face the thing and saw it. It is real. The thing is moving. I was standing there for a good 20 seconds, staring at that creature, frozen in fear, unable to move. But just as it crawled all the way to the end of the bistro table, raising its arms up to climb over it to me, I regained my mobility and I sped faster than I have ever ran before to the front door, trying to push them open, but they were not budging. I reached in my pocket, but couldn't feel for the keys. It must have fallen out somewhere. I was locked in with this thing. It was crawling to me, getting closer. Then it got up on its 2 feet, walking. There wasn't anything to break the glass. I ran to the other direction, at the back past the stage, hearing that all the animatronics were turned on again, seeing them outside the curtains, dancing on the stage. I made my way through the emergency door and opened it. An alarm started to go off. I followed the exit, which finally led me to outside, where I grabbed my keys and drove off in my car, which was just on the street to the corner of me, to never return to that place. The following day, I had a word to the police, after they and the firefighters came to the Funtime Chuck's restaurant last night after the alarm went off, and I didn't know what to say to them, other than I thought someone had broken in and were in there with me. They began an investigation, but I knew that they wouldn't find any traces of evidence, because I know what really done that wasn't human. I emailed my boss who wanted to talk to me about what happened and told him the same thing I did to the police, and that I was changing jobs, and he said that it was okay, but I hadn't got my overtime pay yet. I told him it was alright and to just keep it, as I didn't want to visit that place again. I asked him if everything was in place and nothing was left out. He told me, "No, you did a great job. Everything's where it should be." It must have made its way home behind that stage. He wished me luck, and I never emailed him again. This was 2 years ago, and since then I have been earning money, having a job as a part-time pizza shop dishwashing person, and left it 6 months later, and now work as a retail assistant selling clothes. The place was still in business, and I heard from papers that it actually grew more popular because it had been modernized and new equipment was placed in there. People would have never believed me if I told them the truth, and I know that it happened because that night that dummy was after me. It was in the office window. I wonder if it was after Deborah as well. And I wonder if my boss knew or knows about that creature in that building. I'm not sure what its purpose is, but I know some people know about it, but not sure why they don't leave. They weren't trying to group up and mock me. They were trying to help me. I just hope they help whoever it is after now. Now again, I know that was all real, and only a very few people would know who possibly had a similar experience. And I know I'm not crazy, but I still feel that it follows me when I'm alone at home, and I feel that it is with me right now, just behind my chair as I'm talking about it.